What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about some new Astrobot data. Still no, official numbers, and I apologize. This is 3 times we've done it, and we don't have, the game sold 1.2 million, right? We don't have those numbers, and that's embarrassing. But no, honestly, every time we've heard about it, every time we've talked about it, the game's metrics seem to be doing better and better, right? It started where, the game maybe is just doing okay, right? Then it was, it's probably going to have strong legs. Like, this is a game that can sell really well over time. And now it's just, the game actually did really good when it came out. It didn't do like Spider-Man numbers, but it did really good. And it's probably going to continue as time goes on. So it continues to build this positive, mindset and positive narrative. Not that it's fake or anything. It's, legitimately happening. So, last we talked about the UK stuff. We talked about the Japan stuff. I kind of want to add on to that. So number one, now we have US. I know people are finally asking, what about the US sales? Well, from Matt Piscatella, he said, don't usually talk weeklies, but wanted to add some context to the UK reporting from last week. Across both physical and digital, Astrobot ranked second in unit sales in the US for the week of September 7th, behind only NBA 2K25. And the Astrobot DualSense was the week's best-selling accessory, solid week one. And somebody did actually ask him specifically about the comparison to Ratchet and Clank. He said similar ballpark, best I can do. Again, Christopher Dring has actually been the one to kind of go into the deep dive. So he's the guy who, we talked about selling more than Ratchet and Clank, 21% higher. It was second last week behind Space Marine 2, which is the UK's fastest selling Warhammer game. And then there's just a lot of different conversations, to that tweet. But I want to look at one in particular. He says, and it was arguing with this other guy. But your implication is that it's a quiet period for games, which is bonkers thing to say, and then add especially for exclusives. It was this back and forth. Anyway, Astro's launch was much bigger than Crash 4 and Sonic Frontiers. Then he goes on to say, but if we're focusing on just the target audience, which we should, Astro is the fastest selling original platform game outside of Mario from the last 10 years, bigger than Sonic, Crash, Yoshi, Kirby, etc. So that's a little bit better. Now, a thing I want to kind of throw in, right, to the Matt tweet, right? He says it was second in the US and it was only behind NBA. Technically, that includes Warhammer. Or at least I don't know for sure, but Warhammer 40K was in its early access during that time. So I'm not sure if I imagine they have to be, right? So sales for Warhammer, but only the early access sales would count for that. Now we know Warhammer was doing extremely well on Steam. You can see the numbers. It's doing really good. I wonder how it was doing, in the US digitally, physically, on console, on things like that, because it might have been third. Now, again, right, this was September 7th. The game came out the 9th, but the early access was the 5th. So it did have, I think, 3 days to be on that list. And Astro seemingly, I'm not 1,000% sure it counts, but if everything I just said is actually true, Astro would have also been Space Marine, which it's not a comparison. I think Space Marine, a lot of people are very much enjoying it. I actually just bought it the other day. I'm very excited to play it. Astro is obviously a phenomenal game I really enjoyed. So I'm not pitting one against the other, but I'm looking at games that are highly successful, right? Games that are selling. I think Space Marine sold 2 million in the first couple days. And I'm not saying Astro did that, but it's okay, to kind of just see where those games fall in these charts is interesting to me. So, there you go. You get the US, so you get actually you get a couple things, right? You get the US and you get physical and digital. So it's not just, one versus the other. Again, we've talked about physical in Japan. We've talked about physical in the UK. I think we also did digital in the UK. So we're kind of nailing every department in every region in the world, but very slowly. These numbers are taking a while. But again, we don't have official numbers or anything. But also again, the Christopher Dring one, we talked about the Crash and Sonic one, or that was kind of in my thumbnail in the last video, and I thought that was a great sign. Again, not to compete, but it's they go on to do well. We know Crash 4 didn't do well at launch and disappointed Activision and all that jazz. but it did do well over time. And Sonic did well over time. And I think actually he said in earlier tweets, like, so what? If Astro sells 4 or 5 million in a couple years, like, is that bad? And the answer is no, of course it's not bad. You know what I mean? And we talked about this last time. I think it really just depends. And I hope that PlayStation has realistic expectations, because I don't know, like, can they see the numbers of these other games, right? Like, this is just a genre, and specifically with Black Friday and like children and stuff like that, like, this is a type of game that it's going to take a while, and it can do really well over time if you allow it to, right? If you demand it does 5 million units in the first 2 months, it's probably not going to do that. But if you think, okay, well, we're going to go into this and we want our money back, we want to make sure Asobi made us money here, but like, we're going to give it a couple years and see how it does, over the course of a couple years. I honestly think they only need to go till Black Friday, because I think the initial sales plus these sales of the holiday, maybe you bundle it with like the PS5 Pro, or it's used for the Pro. There's DLC coming, free levels and all that jazz. So I think the game stands a chance to do 2 or 3 million in these first couple months. But yeah, if you wanted to get 4, 5, 6 plus million, and you know what? That would be higher than Ratchet, higher than Crash. So that to me kind of adds on to his tweet, right? Bigger than Sonic, Crash, Yoshi, Kirby. I mean, there's some big Kirby games. Kirby's do decently well. Like, again, we're not talking about Mario, and that's what he says. Like, outside of Mario, take Mario as the ceiling away, and Astrobot suddenly has done like incredibly well. Because it's beaten everything else. Now, it's not, again, as big as a Spider-Man or God of War, but like, it's done well and better than all of its competition, and it's in the genre that does well over time. So like, it's going to keep going, and that's the good news. So, we just continue to add this positivity to it. No, as I've said, in all these videos, I want the game to do well. I want Team Asobi to do well. I want them to continue to do what they want to do, whether it's Astrobot 2 or whatever it is. I want them to be able to do it, and I want PlayStation to take notes in the back corner of the room and say, oh, maybe like if we did Sly and we had 50 people working on it, took them 3 years, we don't go massive, it's not an open world Sly Cooper game, then maybe we could look at like making money this time instead of, past times where we failed. I really want that, and I think Astro has to do well in order to get that. So let me know, as always, what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.